It's crazy stuff. Well, I wanted to cover one last thing real quick, and then later on, everybody, we have a Patreon page. We'll be putting videos up starting next week. We're going to cover more deep financial stuff on the Patreon page. So definitely check that out. And, like and subscribe, come to our show, and check out Lacey and her stuff. But anyway, we're going to do this real quick. So, because Taylor Swift is kind of an interesting thing because she has a lot of Gen Z, is, probably her one of her bigger audiences. That and apparently white conservative men who are now pissed off. I'm sure it's a lot of older white guys are her real fans, the real fans. Right?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Watching her alone with a box of Kleenex and a bottle of lotion. Those guys. The Fox News guys. Anyway.
But then nobody needed to think about that. All right.
Anyway, the whole manipulation of the Gen Z thing is kind of stupid. So this is the Pink News. This is the LGBTQ news, but they're actually citing, who did they cite here? I forget. I think they cited, I can't remember. We'll get to it in a second, but they looked at this. So more Gen Z Americans identify as LGBTQ than as Republican. So Gen Z is what, like 12 to 28, right? So more of them. So this is Axios, sorry, was where they cited this from. 12 and 27. So yeah, 12 and 13 and 28, about that. They did 6,000 young people surveyed in 50 states. 21% of Gen Z Americans said they were Republicans. So 1 in 5. 32% of baby boomers say they're Republicans, right? Those are the older people in their 60s, 70s. Gen Z adults were also far less likely to identify as white Christians. 27%. That's low. It's usually like, 54% for baby boomers. Yeah, it's been high for a while. Not affiliated to any religion, 33%. Wow. Yeah, so they're Gen Z is the queerest generation the U.S. has seen, with more than a quarter of young adults identifying as LGBTQ, compared with just 4% of baby boomers. And you know what's interesting about that too is I looked into that a little deeper. It's like 60-something%, almost 60. Maybe it's a little higher than 60% of people that identify as LGBTQ identify as the B, bisexual.
Yeah.
They'll date. They date one more than the other probably, but they can switch back and forth.
Right.
Which I think is, probably not that unusual when you think about it.
That is the way that I choose to identify as well. And I got to tell you, back in my day, I just felt like we weren't really invited to the party too much. Nobody wanted us in their club. And now, we are a very large percentage of all the clubs.
Yeah, but if you think like historically, about big, like the samurai culture in Japan or Rome or whatnot, that was more acceptable. I mean, to be bisexual. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that unusual to me. But yeah, but a huge portion of them are liberal or Democratic. So there's a big portion of them that they typically vote Democrat when they vote. And the big thing that propelled Biden was, out of the 40 million of them that can vote, a ton of them came out in 2020, and a ton of them came out in 2022. Now, there have been some recent polls that make it look like a lot less of them are going to vote for Biden and more of them are going to vote for Trump. But there's some unusual things about these polls, and I want to pull this up. This is Tim Pool. We've made fun of him before, and he says he's sort of independent or more left, but he's a right-wing nut job. And that's who he simps for. But his target audience is, he's trying to get young voters, young people, and try to move them over to the right wing. That's kind of his target, right? That's what he does. He'll say he doesn't, but that's what he does. But here he is talking about this, and I wanted to cover this a little bit because I think it's hilarious.
In this story from the Post-Millennial, Teen Vogue says Biden and Democrats are losing Gen Z support, claims they may not vote at all. I'm sure all the Republicans would absolutely accept either they don't vote or they vote for Trump. Now we have this from Vox.com. What Democrats panic over young voters misses. Okay, sure, whatever. The point is, even Vox is acknowledging Democrats are starting.
Okay. Once again, we're going to have to do our usual, why won't they read the article before they lecture us on it? So, Tim Pool, champion of the young viewer, the young voter, always wears the beanie. And I was curious, why does he always wear that beanie? Does it look stupid? Is that just me? Well, it's not that bad, because this is what Tim Pool looks like without the beanie.
Okay.
This is the guy that speaks to the youth. So here's the Teen Vogue article. Gen Z voters say they're opting out of the election. And then part of it's because they're pissed about Biden's response to Israel and Gaza. So a lot of them said, I'm not going to vote for Biden unless he does something about that. And he's actually now starting to do something about that, especially since the International Court basically told the Israelis, you got to stop the genocide shit, or there's going to be sanctions and penalties. Right. And now Biden's threatening to say, look, if you guys don't come to some sort of ceasefire or agreement, I'm going to cut the weapons and money that we send to Israel by almost half, which would really cripple the Israeli government. So he's doing something now. But they had this whole thing about, does Trump lead or not lead? And here was the thing that came out about that. So Vox talks about it in their article here. And I like how Vox recognizes it, but he doesn't read the article. So right now, a recent warning sign came from, so this is the Vox article, sorry everybody, that he was referencing. A recent warning came from USA Today, Suffolk University poll of registered voters for the first of the month. A fraying coalition, Black, Hispanic, young voters abandon Biden as election year begins. Read the headline of the accompanying piece. Under the hood, the numbers look dire. Among voters under 35, a generation largely at odds with the GOP on issues such as abortion and access and climate change, Trump now leads 37 to 33%, USA Today notes. The poll of 1,000 registered voters was conducted in the last week of the year. So it's only 1,000 people. So it's kind of an interesting short poll. But as you go down through the article, they talk about these are the reasons why the poll might be the way it is. So if the poll is right here, Biden has a major problem that can turn catastrophic. Young people are pissed at him from his approach to Israel and climate change, down on the state of the economy and the country more generally, are concerned about his age, and no amount of nuance or cope can wish the fact that young voters are dropping Biden for Trump and other third-party candidates. That's what Tim Pool's pushing. The second one, which is probably a little bit more likely, is the polls are noisy. So Biden faces a problem, but not one that should send Democrats into a tailspin. The campaigns haven't really swung into action. Biden's campaign hasn't really done much yet. Polls this far out are noisy, and third-party support is always overestimated. Or the polls are missing something, which could also be true. This is a complex case for scrutiny that holds the polls are capturing some dissatisfaction with Biden, but they are overstating Trump's edge because of how polls are conducted now. It's harder for polls and pollsters to reach young people specifically and accurately capture their sentiments. And the respondents feeding these polls are even less likely to be representative of the rest of the cohort than other generations, which is probably the more likely scenario, which is young voters who are going to vote for Biden aren't really voting for Biden. They're voting against Trump. So if you call them and try to get them to take a poll or a survey, they're less likely to do it. But Trump supporters, who are younger people, are going to take that survey. So you're probably getting an unfair bias, right? You're getting a tainted sample out of those 1,000 people, because most of them are probably people that are Trump supporters that really want to answer that survey, as opposed to most of the Biden voters who are kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's between him and Trump. I guess I got to hold my nose and vote for Biden. Right?
It's true.
I mean, Biden's okay, but I mean, that's kind of my attitude about it is, he's not my first choice, but Abraham Lincoln isn't running this year. So, I mean, I got to go with what's left. But we'll watch a little bit of this Tim Pool thing and then we'll wrap up. But yeah, this just seems so stupid to me because you notice how he skips right over the content and just says there's a problem. It just goes right to his conclusion without any.
Need to freak out because more and more polls are coming out that somehow a 77-year-old Republican white man has garnered majority support among the youth vote.
Believe it.
It has been throughout my life. The youth vote is always a bunch of naive young Democrats.
That's how we got Obama.
Yeah, Obama's like, vote for me. I'm gonna not blow kids up. And then I was like, okay, sounds good to me. And there's
Then
like,
he blew
he's
kids
like,
up.
and then as soon as he got in, he's like, huh, it's like, blow 'em up. Too many of them.
I can believe it. It's super believable because I just see a lot of the young kids. Their whole culture is like based. Like I see a lot of them, just the most average kid. They like being base, and being base is kind of like being what conservatives would consider like not unhinged, but they really don't give a f about what they say.
Yeah.
It's the most off the wall things that's considered base. Liberals would not approve of, and
Well,
majority of the youth.
So I love how this works. This is why I love these shows. So these guys say they're not Trump supporters or Republicans, but everything they're saying is supporting Trump. And what's his thing? Oh, young people are stupid and they're idiots and blah, blah, blah. Except for now that the polls look right, the way we like the polls, oh, they're really based, man. They know what they're talking about, you know? They're a lot more sophisticated. But watch, as this moves towards the election and they start to see more of what Trump looks like and Biden starts attacking him more and Nikki Haley continues to attack him and he has his court shit and his legal problems. I mean, the guy was just found guilty of rape, right? Do you really think you could sell that to Gen Z? Do you think a bunch of 20-year-old girls are going to sit there and go, yeah, I'm going to vote for the 77-year-old rapist? I mean,
That's not the most feminine of stances.
No.
You know, the feminist type is generally speaking swayed away from that sort of thing.
well, and as we look, more of them identify as gay than Republican. More of them identify as liberal or Democrat or leftist than they do conservative. So if you're
Right.
looking at our first article versus these articles that Tim has cherry picked, these articles don't make any sense. That's why Vox is being very careful there, because it doesn't make sense that you'd be getting that result when you look at the demographics. The demographics
Right.
would look like Biden's going to win. And in fact, Biden won the vast majority of the Gen Z vote in 2020 and 2022. So if there's some dramatic change has happened in the last 2 years, the question is, what is it? And they're never going to get into it. It's just they're based and this is how it is. And they're finally starting to see the light kind of thing. It's back to the conspiracy shit. They've been brainwashed by the psyops, the Taylor Swifts. But these guys are also guys that were bitching about Taylor Swift. And they were pushing that whole Taylor Swift is a pawn of the deep state shit. But then they tune totally flips when they get an article that tells them something they want to hear. As opposed to looking at it consistently. Let's look at both sides and let's analyze it and break it down. What does it really look like?
Nah, they don't want to have to read it.
Right. They just want the headline. Yeah, because if you read the Vox article,
Yep.
the Vox article says, yeah, I mean, it could be lots of things, but it's way too early to tell. And if there is some big shift, the question is, what is it? And nobody really knows. If there was, there might not even be a big shift. It might be that polls are just off. Because, you know, most of us that are under the age of, 45, we get a call on our phone and we don't recognize the number. It's like, fuck it, leave a voicemail. I'm not answering that. I don't know you. So.
Yeah, sure.
So anyway, I don't know if you had any thoughts about that, but I would be willing to bet dollars to pesos Biden wins the youth vote again by a lot.
I would as well. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah. Well, Anyway, that was pretty much our show for today. Check us out on Patreon. We're going to do some videos starting next week. Yeah, email us if you guys have any questions or concerns. Where can everybody catch you, Lace?
All right. If you're looking for me, you can find me at mysensewithsense.com. Information about courses, workshops, and articles. If you have questions about those, or if you find some fun clips for us, or maybe the newest politician we need to be looking at. I don't know. Anyone interesting, guys? Email us and send them to us. Duncan, where should that be?
You can send it to us at gossipfinancead@outlook.com. It's down below, along with links to Lacey's pages. Also, link to our Patreon. Nothing really there yet, so I wouldn't jump on it, but there will be stuff coming up soon, so check us out. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Like and subscribe, and, join us next week. Thanks, everybody.